My name is Mr. Ofili. I became a teacher kind of by accident. I graduated and I took a year separately to prepare for dental school. And then when I got to become a teacher, I realized some of the teachers are not that good and I'm better than them. So I became a teacher because it's kind of a need. And I remember being at school and on the other side of school as a student. And I was like, it needs to be better, more entertaining, more interactive, more applicable. And I just kind of fell into it, and it's just something I just do natural. So I grew up in Texas, and the area was pretty diverse as it is, still to this day. And it was pretty okay. My thing is I'm also first generation within my family because my parents are from Nigeria, from another country. So I got to see it from different perspectives. But one thing I can say is that I feel that students nowadays have more freedom or more confidence to go ahead and say what they want to say or feel how they want to feel and stand for themselves. And not to say that there was a big issue back when I was in school, but today I feel like it's actually more prevalent. Kids just stand a little taller and feel a little bit more confident to just stand up and say, hey, this is how I feel and this is me. And not look in your face, but this is me, and they're just proud of it. And that I saw that back when I was in school, but it's just more of a proliferation of it nowadays, which it's good to see. If you actually look throughout history, even if you look at a typical history book, you already know it's predominantly looking at one perspective of history. It is only it's only fairly recent that history within school is to actually sort of branch out and tell it like it is, the full history of it from multiple perspectives, which is also important because if you're going to not make the mistakes of the past, you need to understand everything of the past. The Black community has done quite a bit, as of all other nationalities and individuals from different ethnicities. They've put their blood, sweat, and tears to build in this country. Black history is super important because it's not only a reminder for the Black community itself, but it's a reminder for everyone else that, hey, we contributed here as well. And I feel like a lot of times people just kind of, okay, yeah, we'll just do this for a month, but it's not for 28 days. It's actually 365 days a year. So is it important? Yeah, I feel it's super important because you have to have a reminder every day that you are important. You have to have a reminder every day that, we contribute to this country as well. And on top of that, it's a good way to say, hey, you know what? I don't have to be a stereotype because I think some people feel like they have to be. And I think sometimes people feel like they have to fit into a little box. And if you start going back through Black history, real Black history, looking through everything, it's not just the Civil War, not just through slavery, look through everything. I mean, going back to Egypt, going back through everything else, you're going to realize that, wow, there's a lot back there. And I think if you, again, I sound like a broken record, if you don't know your history, if you don't know your past, you might repeat it. Innovation part. I think there's a lot of inventors, research scientists, politicians, people who have worked behind the scenes for some of the more monumental things in life that don't get noticed. The fact that for Black History Month itself, or Black history in general, that we get to pull that up and just explore exactly what they were working on, how influential it was to what we do today. I think that's awesome because it shows a different perspective I don't think a lot of people know or be exposed to historically in our classes or formal schooling. So when we're able to pull that up there, it's just one of those things like, God, it's an aha moment. And for those who need a role model, to those people who say that they're taking the power back in its history, I've actually asked this question to a student, and I've not met a single student who can answer it. What is the history of that word? If a student wants to talk about it, that's it. What concerns me more than anything else is that students or just people who propagate this, say this word, and there's a few adults who can articulate it, and I'm okay with that, but the law students have no idea where it comes from. They know there's negative connotation about it. They feel that they can take the power back by it, but I've never understood that of all the racial slurs in the world, in the history of the world, this is the only one that I've seen people actually try to use as inflectional terms and try to justify it. And to me, that's different, a little weird. But an interesting thing is, no matter what their opinion of it is, the number one thing they say is it has no place for it on an academic campus. When you do come onto a campus and when you're at school as a student and when you're a minor, your main job is to get ready for the real world. Because the real world is not going to be kind, it's going to judge you even before it sees you sometimes. So for those students who want to justify it on campus, it's not correct. And you'll be hard pressed to find anyone. You may use it at home, you may use it with your friends, but in an academic setting on campus during lunchtime and anything else, it has no place. And there's no educator who's going to, there might be one or two, but most educators will say no. And I'm not for it. I don't use it myself. There's various other people who don't use it. And it's just one of those things where if you want to, fine, but in an academic setting, around kids who are growing up, I don't think it's appropriate because they don't know the history. Unless you know it, then you should not be passing around. And he said that the proliferation of certain type of music and different other things have taken it out of context and put it into mainstream media to the point that people who should not be using it are trying to use it, and that is dangerous. So, big stance, no, it should not be used, especially in academics. And if you want to use it at home within yourselves, great, but no, not at school, period. I know I already mentioned this, but I'm going to say it again. If you don't know your history, you're going to be doomed to repeat it. And I don't mean history according to what your friend or grandma says, and you go back further than that. Whether it's Black history or for anything, period, in nature, ladies and gentlemen, you should always know your history. There's copious amounts of information, data that you can carve out where you look at today and go back anywhere between 10 and 50 years ago, we're doing it again. What separates you guys from the older generation is that, you have the history in front of you. You have the data, you can talk about it. Don't make the same mistakes. Talk about it, research it, make an effort to discern information before you do anything else or say anything else.